Hey, what is up, everybody? This is Stevie Breach coming to you here today. We're going to be talking about the world's greatest Royal Rumble. This is going to be the full show preview. This show, to me, honestly came out of the middle of nowhere. WWE is honestly trying to get a stronghold on the country of Saudi Arabia. It looks like they're going to be focusing a lot of the upcoming tour to really getting into Saudi Arabia, whether if that's getting a new television deal or just trying to make new fans, or whether to try to spread the WWE network to push that bottom line of having more subscribers. I know that WWE has done tours of the Middle East before. They have that Stone Cold Steve Austin versus Bret Hart match off of the Dungeon Collection. I know they went there and they hosted a tournament where I believe that not Bobby Lashley, Ahmed Johnson won the Kuwait Cup back in the day. But as you can see, WWE seems to focus each and every year on a new country that has a lot of people to try and move in there and try and spread the good name of WWE. They're really treating the world's greatest Royal Rumble show like it is bigger than WrestleMania. They've already announced that this is going to have a 50-man Royal Rumble. This is going to surpass the 2011 Rumble that was won by Alberto Del Rio. At that time, that was the largest Royal Rumble of all time, where they expanded from 30 competitors to 40. I was not the biggest fan of that change, mostly because history had always put 30 guys in there and it always worked. And honestly, since then, I've always wondered why they haven't done 40 since. There's so many brands right now that there's, the Monday Night Raw brand, there's the SmackDown brand, you have the 205 Live guys, as well as having all of that UK talent. And then you can always bring up guys from NXT, not to really give them a debut, but give them sort of like a fresh look at what the Rumble is, and give it sort of some fresh faces to be in there. I mean, you go back and you watch those early 90 Rumbles, like especially like the one where they were in the Alamo Dome. I believe that was in like 95 or 96. That thing was full of a lot of Mexican talent that we had never heard of and we'd never seen since, because of the fact that they were just trying to get a lot of people fired up for Mexico. I can't remember if WWE made a deal with AAA at that time, or who they made a deal with, but they were able to bring in a lot of guys. For this Rumble, you see a lot of returning faces. We're going to see Chris Jericho coming back. We're also going to see Rey Mysterio come back. This brings up the question, why is Rey Mysterio able to work the world's greatest Royal Rumble when he was not able to work WrestleMania? Rey Mysterio was one of the names that was mentioned to be Braun Strowman's surprise tag team partner at WrestleMania 34, as well as for a minute it was sort of thought of that Rey Mysterio would come back and have a matchup against John Cena. So they are really pulling out all the stops for this show to make it seem like it's bigger than WrestleMania, only to have a show on the WWE network. I think it's going to be on at like 9 in the morning where I live on a Friday. So I mean, it really works out for me. I'll be able to watch the whole show before my kids get home from school. So it's not like I'm really going to miss out on anything to watch this show on a Friday. It's going to be a lot like that NXT TakeOver show that was live from London. That thing was a real treat. That we were all getting together and we were all watching wrestling. And it was on at such a weird time that the show was over and we still had time to do just about anything we wanted to do in the world, because I think that show ended at like 2 or 2:30 in the afternoon. So I'm really looking forward to this one. I'm scratching in my head why this seems like it's going to be a bigger show than WrestleMania. It's going to have 7 big matches, as well as the It's gonna have 7 big matches, as well as the Royal Rumble itself. So I mean, it's almost like a WrestleMania card. One of the highlighted matches is not going to be a championship match, but it is going to be Triple H versus John Cena. I'm guessing that we have not seen this match since somewhere around 2010 to 2011. Of course, this was a WrestleMania main event back at WrestleMania 22. I believe. So, I mean, there is a lot of history behind this, and to be able to see something that we haven't seen in so long is going to be a really good treat. So, I'm looking forward to sitting down and talking about this as I'm heading down to downtown Sacramento to take care of some business and help my grandma out. So, let's strap her in, and we'll head on down. Peace out. At the world's greatest Royal Rumble match, we are going to be treated to a triple threat for the Intercontinental title. At WrestleMania 34, Seth Rollins was able to walk away from that 3-way by him winning the belts. So we are going to be seeing a match between Seth Rollins, The Miz, and a returning Samoa Joe. Samoa Joe came back and basically went right after the biggest dog in the park. He went right after Roman Reigns and said that he wanted a match at Backlash. This is going to play into the fact that Roman Reigns also has a steel cage match for the championship on this show. So, I mean, easily you could draw the line that Samoa Joe is going to be going out there. He's going to be competing at his top level, but I don't think if Samoa Joe was not to walk away with the Intercontinental Championship, I don't think it's going to ruin his day, because in my mind, Samoa Joe already has a title shot coming up at Backlash, and that's going to be a big match between Roman Reigns and Samoa Joe. The Miz has basically said that he doesn't care what happens to him during the upcoming Superstar Shakeup on Monday Night Raw, or if he gets put back on SmackDown. He's already shown that basically he is a guy that matters. This guy is the Rolling Stone Wrestler of the Year for 2017. He really was one of the guys that made Talking Smack, while it was around, a real show that people really wanted to watch. And you can honestly say that when The Miz left SmackDown and went back to Monday Night Raw, it might have been the downfall of Talking Smack, because it didn't really last that much longer, because he was a guy that really took pride in his promos, didn't really need anybody to write them for him, and giving him that blank script to be able to walk out there and say whatever he thought it took to get his match or his angle over, and make it something that people really cared about, whether if it was him versus Ziggler or him versus Bryan, and basically saying that, you know, the SmackDown GM was holding him down to get him where he's going. I think at the world's greatest tag team match, I think that, you know, people will overthink it and think that something big's gonna go down. But I think that Seth Rollins is gonna walk in as Intercontinental Champion. I think that Rollins is gonna walk out as well. I'm not really basing this off of the fact that there already are house show cards out there with basically Rollins defending the Intercontinental Championship against Finn Balor or anything like that. I just think that Rollins is set up to have a good Intercontinental title run with that belt, and make that, you know, a wrestler's belt that people really want to wrestle for, and the Intercontinental Championship becomes a match on the card that people do care about. So I'm picking Rollins in this match. You know, like I said earlier, Samoa Joe already has that big match against Roman Reigns to look forward to at Backlash, and I wouldn't be surprised if that's a championship match for him. Alright, as we're getting ready for that world's greatest Royal Rumble show, the SmackDown Tag Team titles are going to be on the line. This is sort of like the rematch from WrestleMania 34. Although the New Day is not going to be involved in this match. The Usos came in as champion. They did not leave with their belts. And so they are going to be getting their rematch, 1-on-1, or I guess it's 2-on-2, in a tag affair. The tag team champions, the Bludgeon Brothers, are going to be putting the titles on the line against the Usos, and this is going to be something big. The Usos are somebody that go out there, they're not scared of anybody, but the way the Bludgeon Brothers are really being built up is almost like an 80s tag team from the past. You know, the character is more important than almost anything else, even the work they do. I don't think anybody has really said anything horrible against Rowan and Harper as tag team guys. You know, they've had their past where they've been in, they've been out. I think they've even been tag champions back in the day when the Wyatts were first together, around the time of like WrestleMania 30. I think they won the titles. But these guys are being built up as something. To me, honestly, I look at these guys and I can tell it's not going to last. I think this is more of a joke than almost anything else. But it's what WWE's doing. I mean, it was one of the easiest matches there was to pick on the WrestleMania 34 card. I got a lot of the championship matches wrong, but you could definitely tell that the way they built up the Bludgeon Brothers by them just going in and just beating up job guys as well as beating up lower tier tag teams in the WWE on the way to WrestleMania, that once they got added into that match, they were winning that match. So the Usos, you know, they're not scared of anybody. They're not going to back down. I can see them finding a way to get their stuff in and really get their stuff over. But if the tag titles are going to change, I honestly think they're going to change either on a SmackDown show or at least on one of the upcoming pay-per-views like Backlash. But they're building up the Bludgeon Brothers right now. I wouldn't be surprised if this run lasts a little bit. Once they drop those titles, more than likely those Bludgeon Brothers will disappear. Bray Wyatt, you know, is hanging out with Broken Matt Hardy right now over on Monday Night Raw. But I think I'm not the only one, but I think there's a lot of people out there that are really hoping that someday the actual Wyatts will get back together. That's the best way to use Bray Wyatt, Luke Harper, and Eric Rowan, is just have them as a basically like a triple threat group. That, you know, Bray's the main guy, but you've always got Eric Rowan and Luke Harper in the background that you got to wonder about what they're doing. Whether if it's, you know, when you're backstage or whether if you're in the ring, they're always sort of lurking in the background. I know that it's an older, you know, gimmick that they've, you know, sort of thrown away and brought back a couple times, but I think that's the best way to use all three guys. You know, Eric Harper and Eric Rowan, they both got their singles push, where Luke Harper won the Intercontinental Championship. He had that really good ladder match against Dolph Ziggler. Both of these guys were in that Survivor Series main event of Team Cena against the Authority. You know, I think everybody's seen what these guys can do, but together is when the group is going to be at its best. One of the biggest matches that is going to be taking place at the world's greatest Royal Rumble is a return match, a WrestleMania recall, as they used to call it back in the day. This match, of course, is going to be Triple H versus John Cena. This was the WrestleMania main event of WrestleMania 22. I believe it was supposed to be the WrestleMania main event of WrestleMania 23. But due to Triple H getting injured that year, he ended up being replaced by Shawn Michaels at the time. Both of those ended up being really good matches. I remember when I watched WrestleMania 22, I was sort of surprised because I couldn't really tell who the babyface was and who the heel. People have told me that Triple H played the heel in that match and was a heel on Monday Night Raw before, but I couldn't really catch that vibe. That it wasn't just what I was catching. It sort of seemed like babyface versus babyface when I was watching it on the network a few years ago. These are two of the biggest names there is in wrestling, and to be able to get a match like this, even if it is on a network special, instead of being on a pay-per-view, I don't believe that it's going to have the sort of like instant classic sort of to it, because of the fact that I think this is a show that people are mostly going to forget about in the upcoming, you know, couple of years. I don't even know where they're gonna stick this on the network. I know like the Beast from the East show, if you want to go watch it, you have to go watch it under network specials. It's not listed as a pay-per-view over there, so I don't see this being added to the listings of Royal Rumble pay-per-views, like when you go into the vault and you go out and you go check out all those old shows. I think it's going to be one that you sort of have to look for to be able to find. There is no real storyline that I think goes along with this match, other than just playing off the history that these are two of the biggest names in WWE, and they haven't had a match in forever. I'm sure that Triple H is going to be wanting to say that he's trying to stake his claim as being the biggest name that is involved in wrestling, even though we only get to see him wrestle 2-3 times a year. He does fill in on shows when there is injuries. I know that he's wrestled. He wrestled a house show match, I think, against Rusev in Chile last year, and I remember when I think it was Ambrose got injured. He ended up going over, and I think he played a part in the Shield, teaming up with Roman Reigns and Seth Rollins. It didn't really make sense when you thought about it, because the last time we saw Roman Reigns and Triple H together, it was around WrestleMania 32, and he was trying to kill the guy, and now here he is just joining his group out of the middle of nowhere. But that's the difference between a house show and television. And I think Triple H is such a lovable guy, because a lot of people look at him as if he is the savior of wrestling. A lot of people are just saying, like, we can ride this out, Vince McMahon's last days of running the company, and because of what's going on in NXT, I think a lot of people are thinking that this is going to be really good in the future once Stephanie and Triple H actually get to share their vision of what they think Monday Night Raw and SmackDown is going to be. I know that for a while Vince wasn't going to SmackDown, and Triple H was running it, and it was a really, really good show, and I don't know what happened for him to take a step back from that. But I mean, have you ever seen a bad NXT takeover? He knows how to build a show. He knows how to use his talent. I think that he's involved in storylines, but I don't think he's involved in writing the shows. And he has a really, really small group of writers. I think he only has one writer who writes the SmackDown shows. So I mean, that's one thing to look forward to. Every year I call into the Figure 4 prediction show, and that's my prediction for every year, is that the writing staff for WWE will get cut in half, and they'll have less writers, trying to go back to basics and not make everything so hard for them to put on a show each and every week. So I'm looking forward to this one. I honestly don't think I care whether if it goes either way, but because this show is in Saudi Arabia, because of the fact that John Cena is a worldwide superstar, I'm pretty sure that Triple H is going to take the L here. John Cena will get the win. It's sort of like the Hogan must pose kind of thing, and just be the baby face. Goes over, and everybody goes home happy from there. Hey, what is up, everybody? This is Stevie Breach coming to you here today. Weird stuff going down yesterday, not with the Superstar shakeup on Monday Night Raw, but going on with that world's greatest Royal Rumble that's going to be coming to you from Saudi Arabia. I thought it was weird when they announced they were going to do Rusev versus The Undertaker in a casket match. I thought that it was a great throwback to the 90s of basically Undertaker throwing people into the casket. The last one I really can remember them having was him versus Mark Henry at like WrestleMania 23 or maybe 22, somewhere in there, when Henry was really starting to build his way back up the card and really be a force on SmackDown, and be something who somebody really mattered to the main roster, being that sort of main event sort of threat. But, it sort of went away. It just sort of was like that 90s gimmick that really worked, and maybe they got to the point when just nobody took it real anymore. They might have done one here or there along the way on SmackDown or something like that, but nothing on a major pay-per-view. I can remember them sort of using the casket with Undertaker. I remember when Undertaker came out of the casket at SummerSlam 2010 to sort of show us who was the one who beat him up and knocked him into that comatose state when Kane was running around trying to figure out who beat up his brother, to only find out Kane was the one who did beat up his brother. and took that title from him, and basically that's what put us on that Undertaker versus Kane storyline, where they ended up going into the Hell in a Cell, and it ended up being one of the worst Hell in a Cell matches of all time. But basically they announced Rusev versus Undertaker, and then the next day they took it away from him. They announced it was going to be Jericho versus The Undertaker. And, basically that match was on the books for about a week. WWE was promoting it on Twitter. They were promoting it on Facebook. I don't think they had started talking about it on television yet, but Chris Jericho even got to the point when he talked about it on his podcast, talking about how he, was actually surprised to find out he was putting in a match against Undertaker, and it was actually going to be a casket match. And basically the day after the podcast came out, they changed their mind again, and they put Rusev back in the match. I can honestly tell you, I do not know what is going on with this. To basically, I don't think Jericho really cares what he's going to do. He just probably thinks it's cool that he's working with them. The story has come out. He's gave his thoughts about what it was like to work for New Japan Pro Wrestling. He basically said it's over. It was what it was. It didn't really work out the way that he thought it was going to. I think he went over there. He did a couple of shows. He had 2 matches. And I think that was just about it. I mean, he got to sell a bunch of t-shirts at Hot Topic, which I'm sure was pretty cool. They're still going to help him out with a Jericho cruise. That's going to have some, I think it's going to have New Japan guys as well as Ring of Honor guys. But the whole thing that is weird to me, I don't care if it's Jericho, I don't care if it's Rusev. Either way, Undertaker's going to win the match. It's probably going to be really short, and just like the Cena one at WrestleMania. But for them to, basically play games with Jericho doesn't really make a lot of sense to me. Basically a lot of people are not knowing what is going down with Rusev. It seems like he's almost playing games with people on Twitter, making it seem like he wants to be out of the company. The whole story came out that basically Rusev asked for his release, and they didn't want to release him. But then, they put him in the United States Championship match at WrestleMania to tell him that they really cared about him, and he wasn't going to be in that Andre the Giant Memorial Battle Royal pre-show match. I think Rusev's a big talent. I don't really understand what's going on with the whole Rusev Day, with them trying to edit out the chants. Obviously, it was WrestleMania weekend. He's going to be over. I can remember WrestleMania 30, the Jack Swagger Cesaro theme, was probably the most over thing that whole weekend. People there are hardcore fans that they want to throw their money to make a vacation based around wrestling. It is basically their Comic-Con. They want to go to Access. They want to go to WrestleCon. They want to meet the wrestlers. They want to hang out with the wrestlers. They want to watch the wrestling. They want to see what most people think is going to be the biggest wrestling show of the year. And that's basically what they want to plan their vacation on. Most people only go on one vacation a year, and that's what they want to spend it on. If they want to chant Rusev Day, let them chant Rusev Day. I mean, it's going to be over no matter where they go because of how big that is. He's selling shirts like crazy. They should be happy. I was honestly surprised that Rusev didn't get moved during the Superstar shakeup. I thought that basically SmackDown had sort of ran out of things for him to do, and maybe jumping over to Raw would be something that was sort of fresh for him. It looks like as of right now, more people are going to jump over, but it looks like he's going to be hanging out with Randy Orton and probably Seth Rollins, bringing over the Intercontinental Championship. You've got AJ Styles over there. So he's got some fresh room. And I mean, because their show's only 2 hours compared to Monday Night Raw having the 3-hour show, there's less guys there. So hopefully we'll start to see the rise of Rusev and see where it's going from here. I know I haven't really talked about the casket match that much because I think that basically it's going to be a longer Undertaker entrance, that it's going to be a match. It's almost going to be like those Brock Lesnar house show matches. It's just going to be making sure that Undertaker is able to be there, that Saudi Arabia gets to see something, that they know they got something special, that next time WWE comes on a tour, they're going to want to buy tickets. They're going to want to get the network. They're going to want to make it something really, really cool. So them throwing it back and forth really makes no sense at all, but that's probably more behind the scenes talk more than anything else, and we'll have to figure out what the real story is down the road. Easily the biggest match on the card and the most surprising match to have on this card is going to be a steel cage match between Brock Lesnar and Roman Reigns for the World Universal Championship of Monday Night Raw. This match honestly is a big surprise to me. I know that one person, I can't remember who it was, tweeted me what I thought was going to happen at WrestleMania, and I said that it was a foregone conclusion that Roman Reigns was going to win that championship match. And he said, hey, what if Brock wins and they have a Brock versus Roman match at the World's Greatest Royal Rumble show? So that person called the shot, and I laughed at them at the time, thinking there was no way in the world that Brock Lesnar would go to Saudi Arabia. Brock went and wrestled on that Japan show, but I didn't think there was any way in the world that Brock wanted to go to Saudi Arabia. But I guess there is no limit to where Brock Lesnar will go if there is money to be made. And this is going to prove it. People are out there. People are spreading the rumor of Brock going to UFC. I don't think that is an easy slam dunk as people think that is going to be. We have already seen that you can be under WWE contract and fight for UFC. That sort of blew up in WWE's face a little bit after UFC 200 when Brock Lesnar failed his drug test pre-fight and post-fight and was suspended by UFC. Brock Lesnar, as of right now, is not in the testing pool, but Dana White has said publicly that he wants to use Brock Lesnar. Vince has made the exception for Brock that if he wants to go fight, he can go out there and he can get a match and tear it up if he wants to, just as long as it does not involve in the dates that he is needed for Monday Night Raw. And we saw last year that basically Brock was able to do UFC 200, which I believe was around the 4th of July. I think it was the weekend after, and then he was still able to come in and do SummerSlam, where he tore it up doing the Fatal 4-Way or the Fatal 5-Way, whatever it was. I remember that it involved like Strowman, Balor, Roman Reigns was in there, and maybe that was everybody that was in there. So he's been able to do both, as well as win his fight against Mark Hunt, even though the win was taken away. So I think that maybe I have this thought in mind, is that basically that it's been put out there that Brock Lesnar signed a short-term deal to stay with WWE, and maybe the fact is that WWE runs a storyline where Brock just keeps winning these matches, and they have to keep making the story up that they keep him under contract short term. We'll sign him for one more match. And next thing you know, that Brock is this one more match is turned into 6 months or 7 months down the road before you realize that maybe Brock isn't really leaving. I keep talking about the Summer of Punk, where CM Punk was the ROH champion, and every time they put it out there that CM Punk was going to be wrestling on an ROH show, that this possibly could be his last match because of the fact he had signed to be under WWE developmental, and he would have to be leaving ROH soon. But he kept winning, and people kept saying, well, this is the match he's going to lose, and that brought up the level of anticipating what was going to be going down in that match. I'm really looking forward to it. I think this is really going to be a lot of fun on this show, especially to be seeing them inside of a steel cage. We'll have to see once Brock gets there what Brock really wants to do. I know that Brock wrestled in some steel cage matches during his first run. I know that he had like a steel cage match against Angle. He had a steel cage match against Vince McMahon that pop up off the top of my head. But off of this last run that he's been since he came back after WrestleMania 28, I only really remember him wrestling that Extreme Rules cage match against Triple H after WrestleMania 29, which he ended up winning. But Brock occasionally shows up to matches and just says, yeah, we're just going to go out there and do the Brock special and, in and out. And that's really all there is to say about that. So Everybody knows what happened at WrestleMania 32 against Dean Ambrose. He really didn't give Ambrose anything to work with, and the match really sucked. We've all seen a lot of the house show matches of Brock Lesnar's where he goes out there and has matches against guys like Sheamus and Rusev, The Miz. He doesn't really give those guys a lot, and he really shouldn't have to because of who he is and what level of a star he is. But yeah, when I think it was the match in Chicago where he wrestled against The Miz, they were actually booing Brock Lesnar, and not like in a "we hate you because you're the champion and nobody can beat you" kind of deal. Is that they felt like they didn't get their money's worth. Seeing Lesnar come out and have a 30-second match and just leave, because this was sort of like the building block of setting up the show, and what the drawing power was is that people wanted to see Brock Lesnar wrestle, and they wanted to see him wrestle on this house show match. And even though he was there, and it was what it was. I remember actually reading in old wrestling magazines, and this is something people have been talking about because of the Andre the Giant documentary that was on HBO. People were talking about those matches that Andre had against the Ultimate Warrior, where they were like 30 seconds long. Basically, Andre walked in there, he tried to attack Warrior. Warrior bounced off the ropes, gave him a shoulder tackle, 1, 2, 3, and that was all she wrote for that. And people actually complained that was not what they didn't get their money's worth. And I remember as a kid reading those and basically thinking you got to see Ultimate Warrior beat one of the biggest legends there is, a guy that really nobody's ever beaten before besides for Hulk Hogan. That seems like it would be a pretty exciting thing for me. But now that I actually have to spend my own money to go to these shows, and I kind of say bad things about UFC, wondering if it's really worth the money when Ronda Rousey makes somebody tap out in 30 seconds to the arm bar. You build yourself up for that fight, and when it happens, it's like and then that cable bill comes, and you're like, all over again. So, I'm not 100% locked in that Brock is going to lose this match and Roman's going to win. I mean, there's always that thing that can happen, but in the back of my mind, I'm thinking that they want this World's Greatest Royal Rumble show to really mean something. They want to create sort of a stronghold in Saudi Arabia, and them getting a title win is something that people are going to be talking about. And when they come there next time, people are going to be expecting a title match with a title change again, and they'll definitely be wanting to buy those tickets or tune in and watch on TV. And that's the buzz that they're trying to create when they go do this match over there. So we'll have to see on this one. My prediction as of right now is that Roman wins, because that just seems like it was going to be. But I had that feeling in the back of my mind that maybe they're going to do this thing where just Brock never loses and keeps that championship belt. Hey, what is up, everybody? This is Stevie Breach coming to you here. I'm not quite sure if this is going to be the main event of the World's Greatest Royal Rumble show, but I am going to upload this last and put it last on the full show preview. The actual Royal Rumble itself, 50 competitors going into the Rumble match. It's the most people they've ever had. In 2011, they expanded it 1 year in order to get all the people that were on the roster at the time. Alberto Del Rio went out there and won it. I remember in 2011, I wasn't really hooked on the idea. And actually, if you watch it, not everybody that was on the roster even got to be in that match. I think that only one of the Usos were able to come out there in that match. So even at 40, not everybody's going to get a shot. But I really wasn't all on board because of the fact that it had been 30 for so many years, and 30 always seemed like it was going to work. But in the last few years, with 205 Live, the UK roster, NXT guys, Monday Night Raw guys, SmackDown, returning legends, I always find myself wanting to have those 10 more people in the Rumble. And even though those 10 people in the Rumble might not have a shot to actually go out there and win it, that entrance and the anticipation to see who's next makes it where I really want to have, those 10 more people inside of the match. I think that it really would be something fun. So this 50-man, Royal Rumble, as of right now, I think 20 names have been added. This was sort of highlighted by Chris Jericho, Daniel Bryan, The Big Show, Kurt Angle. So you're going to see a lot of in the last day we have Rey Mysterio named. Why Rey Mysterio was able to go wrestle on this show, but he wasn't allowed to be a part of WrestleMania 34 because of his bicep injury. We all saw with Nicholas going out there and tagging with Braun Strowman that they really didn't need a whole lot from Rey Mysterio. Possibly the entrance. Maybe he didn't even have to hit the 619. Maybe if he just did some dive off of the top rope, he wouldn't have had to use that bicep at all. I think just seeing the entrance, seeing him jump, seeing him run down to the ring and wave to everybody would be enough. And then they possibly could have just took the titles off him another way on the Monday Night Raw after. So we all know it's a foregone conclusion that Rey is going to be going back to WWE sooner than later. They want to have him. He wants to be there. There's the whole story of Rey Mysterio joining up with that small company that's going to be in Nashville. That might be something, but I think that Rey is just going to be on the board. He's just going to sort of be an investor in the company. I guess you can say somebody who works for him. But I don't think that he's going to be an actual wrestler that is in those shows. He'll just be helping out his buddy Conan. Maybe at this point in the game, WWE doesn't think of them as any kind of threat to them. I guess you can say that he would be able to do both. Rey would be coming back as sort of a part-time guy anyways, that just sort of sporadically shows up here and there to give the show a boost. He's not going to be a full-time character, so he'd be able to sort of carry on both things, a lot like how Matt Hardy and Jeff Hardy. I don't think they were really doing Omega shows at the time, but Matt was making those DVDs of the Hardy show and selling them while he was under contract at WWE back in the day. And didn't really seem to mind. A lot of guys have outside ventures now when it comes to them, maybe selling T-shirts or having stores, making YouTube videos, and WWE is open to the fact that maybe you can be able to do both, and as long as they're out there sort of pushing their brand, it makes WWE look better in the long run. So this is a hard match to pick. I mean, I can honestly tell you that Daniel Bryan getting the win in the World's Greatest Royal Rumble show would be awesome. I already got to see that he'd wrestled AJ Styles for the WWE Championship on SmackDown. I know that he's part of the main roster again. I didn't know how fast they would really start using him in matches. And for them to give us that match on the SmackDown after WrestleMania is a really, really big deal to me. There's some people out there who feel like it's a slap in the face because this Royal Rumble is not going to get you to main event anything. There is no prize for the winner as of right now, and they're not going to get the main event on the next Royal Rumble. And Bryan is somebody who's never been able to win a Rumble, and people wanted him to win the Rumble that Batista won. People wanted him to win the Rumble that I guess Roman Reigns won at WrestleMania 31. To go to WrestleMania 31. So, people really want to see Bryan win a Rumble. I think that Bryan winning a Rumble at this point of the game, we're basically with extra credit with Bryan right now. Anything that he does from this point of his career on is just icing on the cake, because we already got the retirement speech. We already got ready for him to go into the Hall of Fame pretty much. And now that he's finally cleared, I think anything that anybody complains about, I don't know what you were fighting for the last few years in order to get him there. Kurt Angle returning to the roster and actually wrestling another match, I think is something that's great for him. When he came back to WWE, I didn't think that he would ever be able to wrestle a match, and there were the rumors that they were getting him ready for a WrestleMania match and trying to keep him for that, but then he ended up wrestling at TLC as well as Survivor Series. And that was really cool to be able to see him come out there. I know that this year when he did his entrance and he actually had the attire on, and we actually got the "You suck, you suck. I think that was a really cool moment, and you can even see how much he's always missed that entrance, and how much you can see that he really loves that the WWE universe really reaches out and loves that guy back. A Big Show, I think they'll give him a moment, but I don't think he's going to do it. I think I saw that actually Mark Henry was going to come back and wrestle in this. I know that he said that he's officially done with wrestling, but he's not, done. He'll be doing these shows as well as helping out WWE with this, that, and the other. Whenever they really need him to do special things. Like the Make-A-Wish and going out in the community and things like that. That's stuff that he really likes to do. I really don't know what else to think, because it's hard to pick a winner in this because of the fact that you don't really know. I think that a lot of the guys that are wrestling on this show in matches, whether that's like Seth Rollins, The Miz, Samoa Joe, I think all of those guys, besides for Brock Lesnar, are really going to be wrestling twice on the show. I think that everybody's going to be doing double duty. Maybe Chris Jericho, because of the fact that he's in that casket match, is somebody that doesn't have to wrestle twice. But we'll have to see what goes down with this. It's going to be hard to pick a winner. Maybe with WWE, they'll add some sort of stipulation in the upcoming week that says what the winner actually gets. I mean, the only thing I can really think of that they did, what the hell is going down over there? The only thing I can really think is when they did the Kuwaiti Cup with Ahmed Johnson. I don't remember, other than a trophy, anything that he got for winning that match. So, maybe this is a video that I'm going to have to go back and update, but like I said, in all these videos, the Kuwaiti Cup, or the world's greatest Royal Rumble, is going to be a fun show. It's basically a free show, because everybody who joined in for WrestleMania is going to be getting one more big show. It's sort of knocked against the WWE Network. They have the commercial 2 for the price of 1 for Backlash, because this is going to be the first show where they're going to be going with co-branded pay-per-views. When it comes down to me, they've been giving us 2 shows a month for $9.99, SmackDown and Raw having a pay-per-view, and now we're only be getting 1. So to me, it's 1 show for the price of 2. But you can't really bitch about that much, because I still think WWE Network at $9.99 is a steal of a deal.